Hello, my name is Melanice Noella. You could call me the voice in the corridor. The one the director, AMICODE, asked to open the door before the story begins. Tonight's room exists beside Scroll Back. Have you heard it yet? If not, don't worry. Some memories arrive before the music, some arrive after. This is not an explanation. It is another room beside the song. When the story ends, give this room a title of your own. Not the title it was given, just the one it leaves behind. Let's begin. The lost and found room sat behind a pair of grey metal doors at the end of a service corridor. The corridor outside was lined with grey metal panels. Shallow seams ran across them in hard angles, turning around screw heads, inspection plates, and narrow vents. When the service doors opened, the corridor light cut those seams into thin, pale lines across the counter before the doors swung shut again. A security camera watched from the corner above the counter. Its black dome reflected the fluorescent lights, the metal shelves, and anyone who stood too long beneath it. The room opened at 8 each morning. The worker unlocked the doors, switched on the lights, pulled the logbook from the drawer, and placed the disposal stamp beside the computer. Plastic bins lined the back wall from floor to ceiling. Umbrellas filled the lowest shelf. Water bottles stood in rows near the sink. Chargers, keys, wallets, scarves, headphones, and glasses were sorted by type. Phones were kept in numbered containers with clear lids. That morning, a cardboard box arrived from the information desk. The worker cut the tape with a small blade and spread the contents across the counter. A black umbrella, a cracked water bottle, one glove, a pair of wired earphones, a folded receipt, a phone. The phone was smaller than most of the others. Its clear case had turned cloudy at the corners. A thin green stem lay trapped beneath a cloudy screen film, flattened into a slight curve against the dark glass. The screen stayed dark when the worker pressed the side button. The worker attached a white inventory tag near the charging port with a loop of string. The intake number was written in black ink. The date went underneath. The phone was placed in bin 13, screen facing up, the green stem still visible beneath the cloudy film. The clear lid closed over it. People returned for phones more quickly than they returned for anything else. A woman came in before noon with one hand pressed against the pocket of her coat. She placed a crumpled claim slip on the counter and kept tapping the same pocket while the worker checked the shelves. When her phone was returned, she turned the screen on before signing the form. Blue light moved across her face. She signed without looking down at the paper. A teenager arrived later with wet hair and a backpack hanging from one shoulder. The worker handed over a phone with a broken corner. The teenager pressed the power button, waited, then wiped the screen on a sleeve. When the screen lit, both hands closed around the device. The backpack slipped lower, but the teenager did not adjust it until reaching the door. An older man came the next day. He showed a receipt, a key card, and a folded piece of paper with numbers written across it. His recovered phone had no battery. The worker plugged it into the outlet below the counter. A charging symbol appeared after several seconds. The man leaned closer to the screen. His fingers stayed on the edge of the counter until the worker pushed the release form toward him. By the end of the week, 6 phones had been claimed. 2 more arrived. 1 was picked up within an hour. Another was claimed just before closing. Bin 13 remained on the shelf. The worker opened the bin during the weekly check. The white tag was still clean. The green stem beneath the screen film had not moved. A little dust had settled on the clear lid. The worker wiped it away with the cloth used for the counter, then returned the bin to the same place. 30 days after intake, the phone was marked for long-term storage. The worker removed the first tag and replaced it with a yellow one. The old tag was stapled to a form and filed in a grey folder. The new tag carried the same number, the same date, and a red line drawn across the top. The phone went back into bin 13. A second form was clipped to the outside of the container. The clip left a half-moon dent in the paper. More items came and went. Rain filled the umbrella rack. A dry week emptied it again. A box of winter hats arrived and stayed. Sunglasses moved quickly. Wallets required signatures from 2 people. Keys were dropped into small envelopes and sealed. The worker's own phone stayed on the counter during most shifts. It lay beside the logbook, face up, lighting at intervals. Sometimes the worker picked it up between customers and moved a thumb across the glass. Sometimes the worker set it down when the service bell rang, and the screen remained bright until it dimmed on its own. Bin 13 stayed on the 3rd shelf. At 42 days, the worker straightened its label. At 49 days, the worker moved it away from a leaking bottle that had been placed too close. At 56 days, the cloudy screen film was wiped again, this time with a corner of a dry paper towel. The green stem showed more clearly for a few seconds before the film dulled again. At 60 days, a 3rd sheet was added to the folder. The metal prongs still closed, the top sheet lifted slightly at one corner. The disposal list printed every Monday morning. The paper came out warm and curled at the edges. The worker tore the sheets free, tapped them flat against the counter, and checked each line against the shelves. Expired umbrellas were removed first, their fabric caught on the bin handles. The worker folded them, tied them with rubber bands, and placed them in a disposal cart. Water bottles followed, then scarves, then single gloves, then chargers with frayed ends. The stamp came down on each form. Disposed, disposed, disposed. The sound carried through the small room and into the service corridor whenever the metal doors opened. A man arrived during the stamping with a claim number for a pair of headphones. The worker checked the system, then the shelf, then the expired cart. The headphones were not there. The man looked once at the cart and once at the counter. He folded the claim slip twice and put it into his pocket. His phone lit up as he turned to leave. He answered it before the door closed. The worker returned to the list. Stamp, stamp, stamp. Near the bottom of the 2nd page was bin 13. The worker stopped at the shelf and lifted the container down with both hands. The paper clipped to the lid had curled outward. The yellow tag had faded. The phone inside was in the same position, screen up, cloudy film over dark glass, green stem pressed flat beneath it. The worker carried the container to the counter and set it beside the stamp. The room was quiet except for the fluorescent hum and the printer cooling down. The lid came off without sound. The worker removed the phone and placed it in the center of the counter. The disposal form was set to its left. The folder was opened to its final page. The worker aligned the lower edge of the paper with the edge of the counter, then moved the phone a little farther from the stamp. The worker's own phone lit beside the logbook. A notification box covered the top of its screen. The light spread across the counter, touched the metal edge of the stamp, and thinned out over the dark glass of the expired phone. The service doors opened in the corridor. For a few seconds, the grey wall panels outside appeared on the dead screen. Their shallow seams crossed the glass in pale green lines, broken by the curve of the worker's hand and the black shape of the stamp. The pressed stem beneath the cloudy film sat under the reflection. One of the reflected lines met its dry tip. Another ran along its side and turned sharply near the charging port. The inventory string lay below it, bent against the edge of the phone. The service doors swung shut. The reflected lines faded. The worker lifted the disposal stamp. The camera kept recording from the corner above the counter. The shelves held their rows of numbered bins. The cart waited by the door with its expired umbrellas and bottles. The fluorescent lights hummed over the room. The stamp lowered halfway. The worker's wrist stopped. The phone screen held only the ceiling light now, upside down and dull. The stamp remained a few centimeters above the page. The worker's shadow covered the glass. The form stayed blank. Thank you for staying with the story. Before you leave, the director has asked me to keep the room open for 13 more seconds. There is one last image to look at. I am not entirely sure why 13 seconds was the number. But the director was quite specific. Stay with it. Then give the room its title when you are ready. My name is Melanice Noella. I will meet you in the next room. Goodbye.